So I just finished this really awesome book by Brad Meltzer. He's a preeminent historian in America, but he's also a conspiracy historian. So he wrote this new book called the JFK Conspiracy. We all know what happened to Kennedy in Dallas, but there was a conspiracy for Kennedy to get killed actually before he became president in December of 1960. The book is about that. The first assassination attempt of John F. Kennedy, to assassinate him in Palm Beach. But that's not really what I want to talk about. What I want to tell you about was just kind of some interesting things from the book, because it kind of goes back through his adult life, his young adult life, up until to where he won the presidential nomination and got elected in 1960. But anyway, so I went to actually see last Friday night. I saw a lecture at the Dallas Museum of Art by Brad Meltzer. And so he talked about the book a little bit, and then he turned it over to Q&A. What was so interesting was, he said, look, you can ask me anything. It goes, and if you want to know who killed Kennedy, who really killed him, he goes, I'll tell you. He goes, ask me anything you want. And then they started doing a Q&A of the audience, and nobody asked him that question. I'm like, I want to know what actually happened, but nobody asked the question. So I guess I don't know. I actually looked up some of his YouTube videos, and I think I got the answer. But you can look up the YouTube videos and find the answer. I'm not going to reveal who killed Kennedy in this documentary, okay? In this podcast, okay? But one of the things that was interesting was when in 1943. When he was, many of you probably know about the PT-109 incident when he was fighting in the Pacific in World War II, and a Japanese destroyer ran over his boat, his PT boat, his patrol torpedo boat, and cut it in half, and 4 of his crew members instantly died. And then the remaining 9 got in the water, and he was able to swim. He'd hurt his back. He already had a hurt back from a young athletic injury, but they swam miles to get to an island. This was in the Solomon Islands campaign. But he swam for miles. So they're on some island, but it's in the middle of nowhere. And so, they're exhausted, they're dehydrated, they're injured. I mean, it's terrible. The sun's beating down on them. It's just awful. But it was in August. But they woke up, the next morning, they kind of came to their senses. I think he was unconscious. They're all sick too and everything, just awful, whatever. But he realized he needed to go somewhere else, because the safest thing was just to lay there. And he couldn't just lay there, because they knew if they lay there, they were going to die, because they didn't see any ships out there. He needed to get to another island that was closer to actual, navigation waterways, where maybe an American ship would see him. Because this island was not next to any kind of a waterway, and so a channel. And so anyway, so he realized his bet is sick, dehydrated, injured, everything else. He realized he had to get back in the water and swim, and that's what he did. And he swam miles to get to another island where people would see him. And then he ultimately found help, and they got rescued. But then he had to swim back to get his fellow sailors. And so just the heroics that he did, I knew what had happened. I knew that their boat got crushed and that he helped save his men. I didn't actually know the point by point in the story of how actually heroic he was. And it's those kind of heroics I always think in terms of leadership. And people seeing you getting out front and doing those kind of heroic things really, really mattered. And so, from then on, people that were around him, that was probably the most heroic thing that anybody could do in war. And those around him just really had respect for him, and people just love to follow a great leader like that. So I highly recommend you reading the book by Brad Meltzer, The JFK Conspiracy. It is awesome. Thanks.